to see everybody sitting here in front of the micro as being a preacher. Well, Tim, you talked about the elections, but you didn't say who won. Does everybody know who won? Obama won by 3. Obama won by 3. What was it? 309 to 209 delegates elected for the. Whatever that is, and he had 49.5% of the popular vote to 49% against Romney, which is pretty tight, I must say, surprisingly. But that is another issue. The issue we want to present here now was the evaluation of actually your work. But before I do this, I would take the opportunity, because I didn't have the opportunity before, to thank our Hungarian hosts for their hospitality. I tried to do that in the first dinner already, but there you had a lawyer playing piano. And I mean, how dare you interrupting a lawyer playing piano? You know, he might sue you or whatever. So I didn't dare to interfere, and actually the music was so nice. I hope that he makes or composes laws that sound like this. I worry. And yesterday night, of course, it was a little bit difficult because of the upper and the lower deck, and you could hardly see what people were doing on whatever deck you were sitting on. But the only thing I remember was this Armenian Italian choir, I believe. They were starting to sing sometime, and I didn't want to interrupt this music again, so I didn't take the floor. So that's why I take the opportunity right now. Thank you for organizing this conference here, or letting us be here in Budapest and being so warmly welcomed with all the dinners, and your team was very, very nice. Thank you very much. So now to something completely different and serious. Since the European Commission spends some money on an initiative like the Bologna experts, we are also asked to prove is it money well spent, and that's why we have to do evaluations of our programs. And we did this now with you via GHK, via Axelle, and she did the evaluation. Before she starts and before she presents her results, I just want to tell you, of course we are aware this is not the truth or the only truth. It's just a glimpse of what is done on the ground. We are aware of the complexities in different countries, in different institutions, and of the Bologna process as a whole. So don't think we take all the results one-to-one and will translate them in one-to-one in changes or whatever. After Axelle's presentation, I will give you my first thoughts how to go on with the initiative, how to develop it further, and happy to share that with you and discuss this with you also after this seminar. Axelle, please.
Oops. I can try without the presentation, but...
Shut off?
It will take some time. The paper is taking up now.
Okay. Good morning, or like early afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Is it better now? Yes. Okay. So first of all, while we're waiting for the screen to start, my voice is a bit failing me. I cough all the time during all the presentation. I'll try to behave at least during my presentation. But pardon me if the voice fails a bit. So I'm going to present you the work that GHK has been doing starting in July 2011. I've been project manager for this evaluation, but I've not worked on it alone. It was a team of about 10 people working on it, including a core team of 3 people. Okay, thank you. A core team of 3 people, and then we also have country experts that carried out the case studies. So it was just to clarify that point. Just a background about the presentation. I'm first going to talk to you about the reason why we did this evaluation and the reason why we were asked to carry out this evaluation. Frank introduced it. Then I'm very, very briefly going to go through the methods that we used. I'm really happy to talk further about it with you afterwards, but we simply don't have time during this presentation. But don't hesitate to ask questions about the method if you're interested to know more about the evaluation methodology. And then we're going to go to the conclusions and recommendations, which are, I understood, what you've been waiting for and what you're really interested to hear about. And yeah, again, I don't pretend that what I'm going to say is the truth, but it's what we found using the data that we've been collected in the last months. And again, I'm really happy to have a discussion about these findings with you after the presentation. So very briefly about the evaluation itself. The scope was to assess the network. So we didn't, our objective was not to assess the work of an individual team or like individual expert. It's really the way the network worked as a network. So I think it was important to clarify that. We covered lifelong learning countries only, meaning the higher education reform, the other Bologna countries were not covered by this evaluation. Another interesting point to clarify, although we found interesting conclusions about the synergies between two groups, we really focused on the lifelong learning program countries. And then the evaluation covered the Bologna experts, but also the Bologna promoters that started the initiative in 2004. Also, it was more difficult, of course, to collect data about the Bologna promoters because it was difficult to reach the experts that were active at that time but are not anymore. In terms of the objectives, it's a summative evaluation, meaning we took what happened until now and then try to see the extent to which the objectives were reached. But the second objective is to use these findings to to provide recommendations to the Commission about the future of the initiative. So that's the formative part. One of the specificities of this evaluation as well is that we focused on the impacts, not only outputs, meaning what has been reached at operational level, but also what are the long-term impacts of your action in your countries and also at European level. And the difficulty was often to find the link between your actions and the implementation, successful implementation of Bologna actions in the countries. So I promise to be very brief on the methods. That's basically what evaluation is about. During one of the previous presentation, you referred to the link between strategy, process, outcomes, and sustainability. So that's really what evaluation is about. And that's what we've been trying to assess in this project. Now, conclusions about, just come back. We focused on the relevance aspect, which is the links between the needs and the objectives. Effectiveness, which is the link between the objectives and the effects reached by the actions of the team, and efficiency, which is the link between inputs and effects. I'll start with relevance and then effectiveness to finish with efficiency. In terms of relevance, the main conclusion about this part is that the initiative remains relevant, has been relevant, and is still relevant, meaning there is still a need for activities from the Bologna experts, and the objective of the national team of Bologna experts are still in line with these needs. To go a bit into details about the themes that are covered by the Bologna experts, the three Bologna priorities, quality assurance, three-cycle system, and recognition, are still relevant simply because we can't say that the Bologna process actions and the objective have been reached in all countries. So it's still relevant to have activities about these topics. The additional Bologna themes are also relevant, but they have not been considered priority for the Bologna experts so far. Additional EU themes like Erasmus modernization or the modernization of higher education and youth on the move are considered less relevant by the experts. In terms of targets, we found that your focus is to support higher education institutions rather than other groups such as employers, students, and also national authorities, which doesn't mean that you don't consider these targets as not relevant, but that you really focus on the higher education institution group. In terms of the format of the activities, we found that the most relevant activities are implementation support activities rather than information communication sessions. Now about the information project on higher education reform, that is actually the context in which this training seminar is organized. There is still a strong need for activities at European level to connect the work of the Bologna experts, so that was one of the conclusions. However, regarding the format of the training seminars, we got a lot of comments about the different levels of the expert and the fact that there might be room for improvement in the organization of these seminars if this difference in levels was taken into account. So that I know it's not something new and it's something that has been discussed, but I found it important to point it out as the evaluation actually confirmed this point. Regarding the composition of the team and the profile of the experts, the peer-to-peer design is relevant, meaning the fact that if you want to reach your target group, you have to belong to this target group. The size of the team was considered appropriate in most cases, but of course, the people we talked to also say that they could do more if they had a bigger team and if they had more support for this team. But considering the objectives, the size of the team was considered appropriate. The diversity of the background of team members was also considered as a positive point, really enriching the teams and what they could do. But it also represented a challenge in the sense that different backgrounds often means different expertise levels in the teams, and it was considered a challenge in some countries. In terms of effectiveness, the initiative has been considered effective to some extent. I'll explain further. In terms of outreach, so your capacity to reach your target groups, you've been very effective in reaching the core target groups, meaning higher education institutions, less effective in reaching other target groups. It doesn't mean that it's because the teams were. It's not only on the team side that there was a problem, but also some of the target groups that were a bit reluctant to be involved. And now I'm thinking of employers. Sorry. In terms of outputs, meaning what you've produced with the Commission and national input, meaning money and also your time, your personal involvement. The Bologna experts team have been effective in reaching the objectives. There are cases where the objectives have not been reached, but we also found that there is always an acceptable explanation for the achievement, what has not been achieved. And again, I'm talking about operational level, meaning the number of meetings that you could organize and the number of participants that you could reach in your events. The problem is mainly in terms of results and impacts, meaning more strategic and global level. There is little evidence of the impacts of the national teams at institutional level, meaning the higher education saying without the Bologna experts, I would not have managed to do that. And even less at system level, meaning national authorities or the education system that would have benefited from the activities of the Bologna experts. Now, it doesn't mean that there is no impact. It just means that we couldn't find evidence of this impact. And as evaluation is really based on evidence, it was very difficult for us to find about the impact and to tell the Commission there is a strong impact of the national teams of Bologna experts at institutional and system level. And this is mainly because, as I said earlier, it was difficult to find a link between what you've done and what's been achieved in the country or in the institutions. Now, in terms of effectiveness and efficiencies, for the management of the initiative, the transfer to of the management, partial transfer of the management to the agencies has contributed to the effectiveness of the initiative. The national management of the team is very different from a country to another. You already know that, and there's sometimes difficulties in the way the work of the team is coordinating between the national authority, the national agency, and the team of experts. So there's some tension regarding this aspect. And the lack of support from the national authorities is often considered a barrier to the effectiveness of the teams. The last point is actually linked to what I said previously about the missing link between your activities and the achievements. Result-based monitoring has not been considered a priority by the teams. There are very few teams that monitor the results of your activities, and that's something that is crucial for evaluation and to demonstrate impact. So that's one of the most important conclusions for me. In terms of funding, very briefly, the current scheme does not encourage innovative approaches, meaning the national teams know that they're going to get funding independently on what is going to be done. That's something that we found interesting in this regarding the funding. And the budget allocation is not always considered taking into account the difficulties of the countries, meaning a country that would start with in a baseline situation that is not as favorable than other countries would get the same funding as a country that has already implemented most of the Bologna actions. So that's a comment that came quite often. Now the recommendations. I tried to summarize our recommendations in one statement with the most important points highlighted in bold. So the initiative should be continued. I think that's something that you've been waiting to hear. And the focus should be on the European dimension of the team. It's a European initiative involving national teams, but it's really the European dimension that should be promoted in the future. The teams should really focus on what works. So what we have considered effective, meaning strategic advice to higher education institutions and the organization of small-scale events and with a practical dimension, like peer learning activities. And last but not least point, result-based monitoring should, and continuous improvement should really be integrated in the strategy of the teams, both at national level and at European level. So to make these recommendations more concrete, we've proposed 5 scenarios to the Commission. The first one being the initiative should stop, and yeah, as I said, we don't think that it's something that would be good. Second one would be the initiative continued as it is, and again, we don't think that the initiative should exactly continue the way it's been operated since 2004. So we recommend an adapted concept of the initiative. The 2 options that we've considered for that is either keeping national teams as they are, but to focus on project activities, meaning all the teams don't need to be there doesn't need to be a team in all countries if it's not a priority for you, but initiative that would involve several teams or experts from different countries with an international, European objective should be promoted. Another option, which is the option number 4 on the slides, would be an establishment of a European network of experts, meaning the management at national level would be very limited. And then we added a 5th scenario following the Bucharest communiqué. We also see that the Bologna experts could have a role in supporting the peer learning and reviewing system that has been proposed in the Bucharest communiqué. So our recommendations are either option 3 or 4 combined with option 5. That's it.